I remember the first stock I bought was a company by the name of Northeast Airlines. And my criteria was, it was the only company I heard of that was selling for less than $5 a share. And my investment theory at the time was that allows me to made the inflationary 70s, and it affected commodity prices. It affected everything. And the tightness of monetary policy drove all markets. And so I needed to understand the credit markets. I needed to understand monetary policy. I needed to understand currencies. I needed all that. So it was at that point that, to answer your question in this long way, that I got involved then with macroeconomic, monetary policy and the like. Okay, so carrying this forward a bit, went to business school, graduated, traded markets, and then got a job as Director of Commodities at Dominick Dominick. That was in, as I say, 73. The oil shock comes along, commodities goes up, brokerage business, as we know it, goes down. They get into trouble, go to Shearson Hayden Stone to continue to do that thing. Didn't fit well in a company, in the bureaucracy or whatever. I mean, I was sort of my own guy. And then in 73, I then set up Bridgewater. And what it was is not me doing anything. I got fired from Dominick Dominick because I punched my boss when we got drunk on New Year's Eve and things like that anyway. So I was a bit rowdy. And anyway, there were Shearson clients who loved working with me, and they would pay me money for giving them advice. And so I was at a 2-bedroom apartment, and my roommate in the other bedroom moved out, and I made that my little office. And that's what I started to do while I was trading my account. So I never thought of it as a business. I thought about it as things that I wanted to do, and then you acquire the things you need to do it, and that became a business. So you work with certain people, and then you buy a computer and so on, and you call it a name, and that was the business. But I had a passion to do this thing. So I built this little business, and I don't know, maybe there was a dozen people or so, and I'll take it to my failure that changed my life. So in 1979, 80, 81, if you remember it well, because it was as turbulent as they get, including now, there was the tightness of monetary policy. Paul Volcker gets appointed, August 1979. Inflation is out of control. People were walking around with win buttons, whip inflation now buttons. And the question is money as we know it going to even exist? And there was that inflation, and Paul Volcker put on the crushing monetary policy. I had calculated that American banks had lent much more money to foreign countries than those countries, developing countries, that those countries were going to pay back. And I calculated, and was public, and it was controversial, that we were going to have a big debt crisis, a big default. And then in August 1982, Mexico defaulted. And then a series of countries defaulted. And I got attention on that. And so, but I thought we were going to go into a depression or terrible conditions, and I couldn't have been more wrong. That was the exact bottom in the stock market because of how the Federal Reserve was able to lower interest rates and operate in that way. And I thought the lowering of interest rates was going to bring back inflation, but because foreign countries, developing countries, were being squeezed with their debts, it didn't happen. I won't get into the mechanics, but I couldn't have been more wrong. It was the exact bottom in the stock market, in a bull market. I lost money for me. I lost money for my clients, and I had to let everybody go, and it was down to me. And I had to decide at that point, very painful experience. I had to borrow $4,000 from my dad to help to pay for family bills. I mean, that's where I was. And I had to decide, am I going to get a job or not, put on a tie, go to Wall Street and whatever. And I couldn't bring myself quite to do that. but it was one of the most painful experiences of my life, and one of the most valuable experiences of my life, because it changed my whole behavior to decision making. It made me think, how do I know I'm not wrong? The fear of being wrong. How do I have those opportunities and place those bets in a way where I don't give up my opportunity? And I realized that what I really needed to do to improve my chances of being wrong is to sort of get out of my own head a bit and have the smartest people I know stress test my thinking to hear what they say, so I can take in all of that to learn, which was great, and to know how to diversify well to build the portfolio. And that was the bottom. So at that moment, if you go from August 1982 on, what I did is I was able to bring in people, my partners, who also have to be independent decision makers, and to work on having this culture. And that culture is one of meaningful work and meaningful relationships in which there's a lot of thoughtful disagreement to get at the right answer. So that is how it transitioned and became a business.